And, you know, really, if it wasn't for that support, I don't know what we would have done, really.
But John had his own heroes. When it came to football, he was the eternal fan.
Liverpool have won the double.
We would just sit and talk football, and he'd talk about Liverpool constantly. And it was the only time I ever saw him animated when he was talking about Liverpool. You know, and he said that the highlight of his sporting life was the 1981 Cup final, European Cup final in Paris, and he had a drink with Bill Shankly, and Bill Shankly said, "Can you get my bag there, John?" And it was the ultimate for John Peel, you know, to be taking Bill Shankly's bag, because he regarded Bill Shankly as a god.
He was a Liverpool supporter, and it was lovely when they were in the Premier, Ipswich, and Liverpool played Ipswich. Sheila sat with the Ipswich supporters and John sat with the Liverpool supporters, and I just thought that was amazing. Really, really sort of like, you know, they were true supporters of their teams.
One of the most amazing things done is the FA Cup final in 1989.
Oh, beautifully done.
If you're in the Cup final, you want your friends and your family to be there, and of course I asked John to come along with Sheila. I was playing for Everton, and John's a Liverpool fan. And of course, in the middle of all the Everton fans, John turned up with his red scarf for Liverpool. I wouldn't have expected anything else from John.
He did have a great knowledge of football, you know, and when you sit and listen to him, he would be very, very passionate. Well, I'm supposed to be an expert, but he's the expert and I'm the listener about what's happening at Liverpool, where it's gone wrong, where it's gone right. He would tell me what was happening in the football world. I couldn't tell him what was happening in the music world, because he said to me, what's your taste in music? I said, I love Billy Joel. And he went, can't see it. I said, oh, well, thanks very much. Yeah. I think he sold about like 60 million records, but does that not count? Not to him, it didn't. If he didn't like him, he didn't like him.
It's pointless trying to plug John Peel. He will listen to what he wants to listen to and make up his own mind. And that doesn't really deviate. And you can't really say to him, you're wrong, you don't like that. Because it's all about his personal taste. And that's why we loved him.
Hello and welcome back to Glastonbury, where it is not at the moment raining, which is quite exciting in itself. And we know enough from the outside world about what's going on to know that England won 2-0. No goals for Michael Owen, but in the next match, and of course, let's hope that Glenn Hoddle sticks with Steve McManaman as well.
He takes your advice, does he?
He does.
Like he really does.
He should.
I was one of the really lucky ones because I got to spend an awful lot of time with John when we were doing the Glastonbury TV coverage, and I count myself as really privileged to have done that. My memories of that are he'd be on the red wine, I'd be on the Jack Daniels, and we'd also have quite a few heated debates about different bands. I'd be sort of getting really excited about who was on the main stage, the headline act, you know, R.E.M. are on stage or Coldplay are on stage, and he'd be going, yeah, and just grumbling, because John grumbled. He was good at grumbling, and he'd be like, you know, God, I don't know what you see in them, and then he'd be shouting about Kando Bongo Man or somebody completely obscure that I knew nothing about.
His musical taste was his own. There was no way he could second guess it.
He'd play Junior Biles, and then he'd play a techno record by Richie Hawtin, then he'd play a band from Wales called Mellis, which no one else had heard of. It's a remarkable juxtaposition of different musics.
He championed a lot of movements over the years, you know, not just punk, but hip-hop as well. And in fact, this very important thing about, I think he got more complaints from irate listeners about playing hip-hop, dance, black music, whatever, than he did about playing punk music.
I think he was partly responsible for helping people on Radio 1 listen to drum and bass and jungle and techno and house music. I think dance music in general, John Peel would take that gamble.
He obviously had very idiosyncratic tastes, you know, that were particular to him, and that's just what he was going to play, and that was that, and luckily he had good taste, so it was enjoyable to listen to.
It just never ceased to amaze me, the breadth of what he would play. You know, it'd be some sort of 1950s piece of music, and there'd be, you know, something from 2004, and it would work. He would, you know, and this extraordinary. How can one person have that such? I don't know where it came from to have that exquisite taste. I mean, some people said, yeah, but lots of it's unlistenable. But they didn't mind. People didn't mind that, because in between there'd be this absolute gems.
The fact was, if he was just another bloke playing this kind of music, you wouldn't listen to it all the time. You wouldn't put up with the dross that he used to play, you know, a lot. You know, for the 1 and 3, the 1 and 4 interest in, you know, breathtaking records. You know, unless you had that little the personality, the ease that he put you at, you know.
The thing is, if he played something bloody awful and you'd be listening and, you know, 3 minutes of feedback and, you know, a Scottish accent squealing at you, you'd weather that because you knew around the corner, well, what's next? There was a constant box of delights.
If you can get a lot of people listening to Captain Beefheart, whether they listen to him because it's a cult thing or because they really listen, doesn't really matter that much, because if they listen to it as a cult thing, then the chances are they'll get into it properly eventually anyway. But if you can do something like that, you know, it's worth all the ludicrous nonsense you have to go through to do it.
He said quite recently to me, and this is so simple and so true, he said, I just want to hear something I've never heard before. And that's it, really. That you can sum up what his quest musically was all about. He would be listening for something exactly that isn't a copy, that isn't, you know, that hasn't been done before.
The thing about Peel is, at his best, is every record challenges the assumptions of the one before. You hear a record, you think, oh, that's nice. Well, that's quite good. And then you're immediately challenged. Say it's some nice kind of folky thing or some indie pop jangly thing. You think, hey, that's pop music. Then you go, do. And you think, yeah. And you think, now I like both of these, but how do I feel about that? And that's the reaction he wanted. No other DJ does that. No other DJ in the world does that. That's him. That's what we've lost.
One of the records he wanted to hear was Stiff Little Fingers, Nobody's Hero, and there's a version of it that occurs rather neatly on a Peel Sessions LP, which I'm about to play in now.
It wasn't only the music, it was his delivery that charmed people.
John Peel was one of the great broadcasters because he had that extraordinary ability to be himself. You had the sense with John that when he was broadcasting to the nation, to millions of people, he was exactly the same person that he had been 10 minutes earlier when he was talking to somebody who just bought him a cup of coffee in the office or bumped into somebody on the way into the studio that morning. He was himself. There was no side.
The person you heard on radio, he just spoke like that off radio. You didn't feel that he certainly wasn't packaged. He certainly didn't hype himself up. I don't even think he would call himself a great DJ. You know, he was a bloke that played records, and it was, to a certain extent, like going to a bloke's house or a bloke coming round to your house and saying, you know, listen to these tunes that I like, Benjamin, you know, see what you think of them.
You were sitting listening to him in the car, then you thought, hey, wait a minute, he's talking to me here, and that was a great style, and it was one of his best attributes that he could sort of, you know, sit in front of a microphone and be just absolutely relaxed and talk as though he was talking in a pub with six mates.
And now from a knave, me, to a queen, Annie Nightingale.
This self-deprecating humour, the playing the records at the wrong speed, sometimes the playing the things at the wrong side, and being a human being. He was so the opposite of your slick DJ. You know, he was just so determinedly himself.
Sometimes you hear people described as having a bit of a John Peel voice, which is a kind of that soft burr to it, but also just that slightly lugubrious, but not depressing way of speaking. And at one time, DJs all had to talk like that, you know, all right, mate, not have very, you know, talk very quickly, up to the vocal, all those things, not say or pause for thought. It was considered more important to talk without stopping rather than stopping briefly and think about what you were going to say.
Well, there's quite plainly nothing that I can do here to help, is there?
That's patently obvious, I think. And all the time there was John, just talking about what he wanted to talk about, and stopping and saying and pausing and just getting it. And, you know, we all thought, and well, I say we all, speaking for us all, but I thought, and I know lots of other people, he was the one who said, no, well, you can do it this way.
It's a funny one, really, the idea of a reticent DJ, you know. And obviously, he could have only come out of the UK. He always struck me as having this kind of mixture of self-depreciation and self-assurance as well.
The more I talk, then the fewer records I can play, so I'll try and keep the chat to a minimum.
So it may seem strange that he's been doing a show that's all talk, home truths, but it does make sense.
He actually liked home. He actually loved his family. He liked his house. It was a very important place for him. So I think it was natural for him to do Home Truths. I remember when he first did it, some people said, "What's he doing that for? What, what's that about?" And I said, "Well, that's about him. Just like he wasn't putting on a show when he did, his Radio 1 show. He's not putting on a show now. This is about him."
I thought it was very cool that his home life was very openly important to him. He's a real champion for domesticity as cool, Don't know whether that's been done with quite as much style.
Hello and welcome to Home Truths, a name chosen only when it became an administrative impossibility for programme planning to continue without a name.
It's a great skill to be able to talk to people out there, put them at their ease, to make them feel entirely unself-conscious, and just to get them talking about themselves unself-consciously. He could do that. By golly, he could do that.
Recently, the worlds of his music and his domesticity came together when he started to broadcast live from home.
Chris was in the bathroom. We had to put Chris with his keyboard setups in the toilet, and obviously we had hilarity every time, he'd flush the bathroom every time he was like playing a solo or something. I was kind of standing on some stairs to sing, and John was over at the desk with the microphone. But it's also a bonus when you get to meet him because he's instantly entertaining, just story after story, and that angle that he puts on things.
One of those responsible for John's favourite song was invited to his birthday party.
I was thinking, what can I give John Peel as a special 60th birthday present? In my attic, I happen to have the actual original lyrics of Teenage Cakes written by my brother John, with corrections, things scored out and stuff. So I looked at that. I think John Peel will like this. So we got it framed, and we presented it to him before, the actual party. And I just remember he looked at it and he went, "Oh my goodness," or something like that, words to that effect. And he just disappeared into his house. And he came back about 10 minutes later, and I could tell he'd been crying. He had like all these red marks around his eyes, and I think it was nice.
It's hard to imagine who might replace John Peel. It's hard to imagine anybody that's got that kind of width and breadth of musical taste, really. Somebody that would have the nerve to play Gene Vincent, next to the Block Party. I mean, that takes quite a lot of courage, or bloody mindedness.
I miss him because we need people with passion and bravery and good taste. I like one-offs as well. That's kind of perfect that he was a one-off, right? There was no real protege waiting in the wings.
I mean, that was the great thing about John. He said that he was the luckiest man alive with Sheila and the kids, and he just enjoyed every minute of his life. And to die at the age of 65 is unbelievable. It is so tragic.
I don't think that the true impact of John's passing has been felt yet. In about a year, we will realise the massive void that's been left.
And a lot of people, since the last week, have said, we all went out and got terribly drunk last night to help us through this. And I don't think he'd have minded that. And you could have quite, said, well, OK, as long as you're having a decent bottle of Rioja.
There's a voice that we needed. He was there for the people, for real, man. He was, we lost one. That's just the way it is. But I'll smile for him, you know what I mean? I will. I'll smile for him. We lost one, man.